Have you ever judged someone based on their appearance, only to realize later how wrong you were? Stick around till the end, because this story comes with a twist you won't see coming, one that'll leave you questioning how you perceive others. It was just another busy Saturday afternoon at the downtown mall. Families wandered from store to store, arms laden with shopping bags, while kids clutched oversized pretzels and ice cream cones. The faint hum of pop music blended with the chatter of shoppers, creating the kind of chaotic harmony only a mall can produce. Amid the bustling crowd, one figure stood out like a brushstroke of bold color on a gray canvas. A teenager, maybe 18 or 19, strolled through the food court. His outfit was unlike anything anyone had seen before. A tailored jacket with mismatched patterns, pants that flared dramatically at the ankles, and shoes so unique they looked like they belonged in an art gallery rather than on a mall floor. He accessorized with oversized sunglasses and a chunky necklace that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. People turned their heads, some whispering, others openly staring. His look wasn't just fashion-forward, it was audacious, the kind of style that dared you to have an opinion. Most people weren't sure whether to admire him or laugh. Little did anyone know, this seemingly eccentric teen wasn't just a mall-goer with a flair for the dramatic. Beneath the bold outfit and calm demeanor lay a story that would soon leave everyone stunned, especially the mall security guards who were watching him from a distance. By the time you reach the end of this tale, you'll not only know his name, you'll understand why his story has gone viral. So, are you ready to uncover the truth behind this unforgettable encounter? The security guards, stationed near the food court, had noticed the teen almost as soon as he walked in. Dressed in their crisp uniforms, they stood with an air of authority, their radios crackling occasionally with updates. At first, their expressions were neutral, but as they watched the teen weave through the crowd, their eyebrows raised, and amused smirks spread across their faces. "What's he supposed to be? A runway model?" one guard muttered, nudging his colleague. They chuckled, their laughter low but unmistakably mocking. To them, the teen was just another attention seeker, someone trying too hard to stand out in a place where people came to blend in. His bold outfit and confident stride didn't impress them. It annoyed them. And the more they watched, the more they convinced themselves that he was a disruption waiting to happen. As the teen paused to look at a directory, one of the guards made a decision. "Let's go," he said, gesturing to his partner. They adjusted their belts and walked toward him, their footsteps firm and deliberate. The teen didn't notice them at first, too engrossed in the directory to see the two figures approaching. But the moment he looked up, their expressions made it clear this wasn't going to be a friendly chat. "Hey kid," the taller guard said, his voice carrying just enough authority to draw the attention of a few nearby shoppers. "What's with the outfit? You think this is some kind of fashion show?" The teen blinked, momentarily taken aback. But instead of shrinking under their scrutiny, he straightened his posture and met their gaze with quiet confidence. What happened next would set the stage for a confrontation that no one in the mall would forget. Keep watching, because things are about to take an unexpected turn, one that will leave the guards and everyone else speechless. The taller guard crossed his arms, tilting his head as if to emphasize his authority. "We've got a dress code here, you know," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "And I don't think your get-up fits the vibe." The teen raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a faint, almost amused smile. "A dress code at a mall?" he asked, his voice calm but laced with just enough incredulity to make a few nearby shoppers chuckle. The shorter guard chimed in, emboldened by his partner. "We're just saying, maybe tone it down a little. You're..." Drawing attention, he gestured vaguely at the teen's outfit, his hand lingering over the necklace that glinted under the overhead lights. "Isn't that the point of fashion?" the teen replied smoothly. His voice wasn't confrontational, but his words carried a weight that hung in the air. "To stand out, to express yourself." The taller guard's smirk faltered, but he recovered quickly. "Listen, kid, we're not here to debate fashion. We're here to make sure everyone feels comfortable. And right now, you're making people uncomfortable." At that, a small ripple of murmurs spread through the growing crowd. Some shoppers looked confused, others amused, and a few seemed outright annoyed at the guard's behavior. The teen glanced around, taking in the onlookers before turning back to the guards. "Uncomfortable, because I'm not wearing what everyone else is? or because you don't understand it? The question hung in the air like a challenge. For a moment, the guards seemed unsure of how to respond. The taller one cleared his throat, his confidence faltering. Look, just ... keep it down, all right. We don't want any trouble. The teen tilted his head, his expression calm but unreadable. I'm not causing trouble, he said evenly. You came to me. The crowd, now a mix of curiosity and quiet support for the teen, watched intently as the tension built. Little did anyone know, the guards' attempts to belittle the teen were about to backfire spectacularly. What happens next? Let's just say the tables are about to turn in a way no one saw coming. Stay with me, this is where things start to get really interesting. The taller guard squared his shoulders, trying to regain control of the situation. All right, smart guy, he said, his voice rising just enough to carry over the murmurs of the crowd. If you don't want trouble, maybe stop dressing like ... that. He waved a hand vaguely at the teen's outfit, eliciting a few quiet laughs from the onlookers. But the teen didn't flinch. Instead, he let out a soft chuckle, a sound that seemed to catch everyone off guard. So, let me get this straight, he said, his tone steady and measured. You're saying my clothes are a problem? In a mall where half the stores sell ripped jeans and neon sneakers. The crowd laughed louder this time, and a few people nodded in agreement. The guards exchanged uneasy glances, realizing they were losing the upper hand. You think this is funny? The shorter guard snapped, his face reddening. We're just trying to do our job. Oh, I get it, the teen replied, his voice still calm. You're doing your job. But let me ask you this, when's the last time you saw someone's clothes actually hurt anyone? The question hit like a lightning bolt. The guards hesitated, clearly unprepared for his calm yet pointed response. The taller guard shifted uncomfortably, but before he could answer, the teen continued. Fashion isn't about fitting in, he said, addressing not just the guards but the entire crowd now. It's about expression, creativity, confidence, and sometimes it's about making people think. His words landed with a weight that silenced the murmurs. The crowd, which had been buzzing with whispers and quiet laughter, now listened intently. Even the guards seemed momentarily at a loss for words. The teen glanced around, his eyes scanning the faces in the crowd. If what I'm wearing makes you uncomfortable, maybe it's not my clothes that are the problem. Maybe it's the way you see them. The crowd erupted in applause and murmurs of agreement, their support visibly rattling the guards. The taller one cleared his throat, but his voice lacked the authority it carried moments ago. All right, that's enough, he muttered. Move along, kid. But the teen didn't move. He stood his ground, his calm confidence unshaken. The tables were starting to turn, and the guards were about to learn just how out of their depth they really were. What happens next will leave you questioning how quickly we judge others. Keep watching, this story is only getting better. By now, the spectacle had drawn even more attention. Shoppers from nearby stores wandered over, craning their necks to see what was happening. A small crowd formed, their faces a mix of curiosity, amusement, and quiet indignation. Who is he? Someone whispered, pointing at the teen. No idea, but he's handling those guards better than most adults would, another replied, grinning. The teen, still standing tall, seemed unfazed by the growing audience. His composure only added to the intrigue, and whispers rippled through the crowd. People began pulling out their phones, recording the interaction. Some even snapped pictures of his outfit, admiring the bold colors and intricate details. The guards, however, weren't as composed. They exchanged nervous glances, clearly uncomfortable with the crowd's shifting energy. What had started as an attempt to mock and intimidate the teen was now spiraling out of their control. All right, folks, nothing to see here, the taller guard called out, raising his hands in an attempt to disperse the crowd. But his words had the opposite effect. More people stopped to watch, sensing that something significant was unfolding. A middle-aged woman in the front row crossed her arms and shot the guards a pointed look. Why are you harassing him? She asked, her voice loud enough to carry over the murmurs. We're not harassing anyone, the shorter guard snapped, clearly flustered. We're just making sure everything's under control. Control? Another voice chimed in. He's just walking around, minding his own business. You're the ones causing the scene, the crowd murmured in agreement, and the guard's frustration grew. The taller one stepped closer to the teen, his tone harsher now. Look, kid, this isn't a debate. Either tone it down or we'll have to escort you out. But before the teen could respond, a voice from the crowd cut through the tension like a knife. Wait a minute, I know who he is. All eyes turned toward a young woman clutching a shopping bag, her face lighting up with recognition. That's him. He's that designer, the one from the Paris show. The murmurs turned into gasps of surprise, and the energy of the crowd shifted dramatically. The guards froze, their confident facade crumbling as the realization began to sink in. The teen simply smiled, his calm demeanor unchanged. The truth was out now, and the guards were about to realize just how big of a mistake they had made. What happens next will make you rethink everything about this encounter. Stick around, the best part is just ahead. The guards stiffened, their expressions flickering between disbelief and unease. The taller one scoffed, trying to dismiss the young woman's revelation. Designer. Sure, and I'm the president, he said with a forced laugh, but his voice lacked the confidence it carried earlier. The young woman wasn't backing down. She stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement. No, I'm serious. I follow him on Instagram. He's a designer like a real one. He was at Fashion Week last month. The crowd buzzed with new energy, whispers turning into exclamations as people pulled out their phones to search for proof. A ripple of recognition spread as more and more people found his profile and confirmed her claim. Oh my gosh, it is him, another exclaimed, showing their screen to the person next to them. The guards' faces paled. The taller one took a step back, his earlier bravado replaced with uncertainty. Look, I don't care who he is, he said, his voice wavering. He's causing a disturbance, and that's our job to handle. The shorter guard, now visibly uncomfortable, muttered, maybe we should just let it go. But the taller guard wasn't ready to back down completely. He turned to the teen, his tone sharper now, as if trying to regain control. If you're really some big shot designer, then why are you walking around dressed like that? The teen raised an eyebrow, his calm smile never wavering. Because this is what I do, he replied simply. I create, innovate. And clearly, I've made an impression on all of you. The crowd erupted into laughter and applause, their support for the teen growing stronger with every passing moment. The guards, now the clear villains of the scene, stood awkwardly as the tide of public opinion turned against them. But the teen wasn't finished. He took a step forward, addressing not just the guards but the entire crowd. Fashion is about more than clothes. It's about identity, confidence, freedom. And the fact that we're having this conversation proves that what I'm wearing is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, make people think. The crowd cheered louder this time, some even shouting words of encouragement. The guards, visibly flustered, had no idea how to respond. They had started this confrontation expecting to assert their authority, but now they were the ones under scrutiny. And the teen, he stood there, calm and composed, knowing that the truth was on his side. What happens next will completely shift the dynamic of this encounter. Stay with me, you won't want to miss the conclusion to this unforgettable story. As the crowd continued to murmur in excitement, the teen stood in the middle, unaffected by the growing attention. The guards, now fully aware of their blunder, looked even more uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot as the situation slipped further from their control. With a slight smile, the teen casually adjusted his sunglasses and glanced at the crowd. You know, he began, his voice calm yet carrying just the right amount of weight. It's funny. You all are so quick to judge a look, but you don't even know who's behind it. A few people in the crowd nodded, their curiosity piqued. They had no idea where this conversation was headed, but the teen's words seemed to promise something more. The taller guard tried to regain his composure. What's that supposed to mean? He asked, his voice gruff but tinged with uncertainty. The teen tilted his head, giving the guards a long, measured look before replying. It means that I'm not just some kid in a crazy outfit. I'm a designer, and the things I wear, they're not just clothes, they're statements. I'm creating something that'll be in stores soon. The guards exchanged confused glances, their expressions clearly questioning whether they should believe him. A few in the crowd seemed skeptical too. Was he just some teenager with a big imagination, or was he telling the truth? The teen didn't wait for anyone to respond. Instead, he continued, "You've probably never heard of me yet. But you will." His tone was not arrogant, but confident in a way that made the words impossible to dismiss. "I've shown at Fashion Week. I've worked with designers you've probably heard of. But right now, I'm just here. In this mall, wearing what I want." The crowd went quiet, some of them pulling out their phones to look him up again. This time, the search was more urgent. The name he dropped, Fashion Week, was enough to make people stop and pay attention. The teen looked at the guards one last time, his expression calm, almost pitying. "Maybe now you'll think twice before assuming what someone's capable of based on how they look." A few seconds passed in silence before the first phone beeped. "Wait, he's not lying," someone said aloud. "It's him. He's got an entire collection." The crowd erupted into excited whispers, with people now gathering around their phones to confirm his identity. The tension had shifted completely. The guards, who had initially walked up to this teen expecting to teach him a lesson, were now standing at the center of a public humiliation. The teen's quiet confidence had turned the entire situation on its head. The guards' mockery was no longer just misguided, it was becoming a spectacle of its own. Stay tuned, because the guards are about to learn just how far their assumptions have gone off track. You won't believe how this ends. The moment the crowd realized who the teen really was, the energy in the mall shifted. Phones were out in full force now, snapping pictures, capturing videos, and confirming what had been a simple claim. The name of the designer, that designer, was everywhere. His runway shows, his collaborations, even his distinct fashion philosophy was quickly laid out for all to see. The teen had dropped the bombshell with such casual ease, but the impact was undeniable. People began to step back, looking at the guards with a mixture of pity and disbelief. "Wait a minute," a woman in the front row said, scrolling through her phone. "He's got articles about him in Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. This is real." The murmurs of shock grew louder, and a few of the bystanders even started clapping. The once dominant guards were now completely out of their depth, their attempts at control unraveling in real time. The shorter guard stood with his mouth slightly open, struggling to find the right words. The taller guard, who had been so sure of himself moments before, now looked like a deer caught in headlights. They were the ones who had tried to intimidate the teen, who had mocked his appearance, and now, the tables had turned. "Look, we didn't know," the taller guard began, his voice weak, his posture slumping as he took a step back. He cleared his throat, trying to salvage what little dignity he had left. "I mean, it's not like we didn't mean any harm." The teen gave him a measured look, his smile almost amused. "It's okay. I understand. You only know what you see on the surface." He paused, letting the words settle before adding, "But maybe next time, before you make assumptions about someone, you should dig a little deeper." The crowd nodded in agreement, some shaking their heads at the guard's blatant misjudgment. The realization of what had just happened, of how quickly the guards had gone from authoritative figures to figures of ridicule, hung heavy in the air. A man in the back of the crowd, still holding his shopping bags, turned to the guards and said, "You really should have known better. Judging people by their appearance never works out." The teen, meanwhile, stood tall, no longer concerned with the guards or the situation that had been forced upon him. His eyes were now on the crowd, a subtle but triumphant smile on his face. He hadn't just handled the confrontation with grace, he had completely flipped the narrative. And with one simple revelation, he had shown everyone in the mall just how wrong they could be to judge someone based on their appearance. What happens next? Well, the guards might be feeling a little embarrassed right now, but there's more to this story than meets the eye. Stick around for the moment of truth, you won't want to miss it. As the crowd continued to buzz, more people gathered, drawn in by the growing spectacle. It was clear now that this wasn't just some small misunderstanding, it was a turning point. The teen, who had been mocked just moments ago, was now the center of attention. And it wasn't just the guards who had underestimated him. It was everyone who had ever dismissed someone based on their appearance. The teen glanced at his watch and then at the crowd, a small, knowing smile playing at the corner of his lips. He could feel the power shift, the attention of them all completely on him now. He wasn't just the guy in the eccentric outfit anymore, he was someone with influence. Someone who had just made a point that people would remember, and then, just as the guards were about to walk away, completely defeated, the teen made one final move. He took a step forward, turned to face the crowd, and spoke clearly, his voice strong and confident. "I know you're all wondering who I really am," he said, his gaze sweeping across the people who had been following his every word. "And while I could sit here and tell you more about my work, my journey, and all the things I've done, let me just give you a little hint." The crowd grew silent, the anticipation hanging in the air. He paused, allowing the suspense to build. Then, with a small gesture toward the guards, he said, "My name is Teen's Name, and I'm the founder of Brand Name. My designs have been featured on runways across the world. But what matters most to me is that people like you, people who've never even heard of me, now understand the power of self-expression." The crowd gasped. The realization hit like a tidal wave. This wasn't just a random teen making a statement. This was a major designer, a creative force who had just turned a simple trip to the mall into a lesson on judgment, assumptions, and the impact of personal style. The guards stood there, mouths agape, their earlier bravado now nothing more than a distant memory. The moment of truth had arrived, and it was clear, they had not only misjudged the teen, they had underestimated the magnitude of the person standing before them. And as the crowd applauded, their cheers filling the mall, the teen simply nodded, a quiet satisfaction settling over him. He had made his point, and it had been heard loud and clear. As the applause continued, the guards shuffled off, completely defeated. They had tried to intimidate him, to diminish him, but in the end, it was they who had been humbled. The teen had won, not just because of who he was, but because of how he had handled the situation with dignity and grace. And with that, the lesson was clear: never judge a book by its cover, and never assume that someone's worth is determined by their appearance. This teen, in his bold outfit, had just proven that style, creativity, and confidence could not be contained by anyone's expectations. The mall, once filled with whispers and judgment, was now buzzing with admiration. The teen had not only made a statement with his fashion but had left an indelible mark on everyone who had witnessed the confrontation. What's next for this teen? Well, let's just say this encounter is only the beginning of his journey. You've seen how the world can be quick to judge. Now, it's time to watch him break even more barriers. Stay tuned for the next chapter of this remarkable story. As the guards disappeared into the distance, the mall seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. The energy in the air had shifted completely, and now, instead of awkward tension, there was a sense of exhilaration. People were still talking, buzzing about what had just happened. Some were retelling the events to others, their voices full of awe. Others were eagerly searching for more about the teen, who he was, what he did, and how someone so young had so effortlessly turned the tables. The teen, now surrounded by a small group of admirers, simply smiled. His posture remained relaxed, but there was an undeniable sense of accomplishment in his eyes. He had just made a statement far bigger than any outfit or runway show. "Hey, are you really Teen's Name?" a woman asked, her phone already out, ready to capture the moment. "I saw you in Vogue last month. Your collection was amazing." The teen nodded graciously. "Yes, that's me," he said, his voice steady. "But honestly, it's not about the magazine covers or the recognition. It's about being able to express who I am and letting others do the same." His words resonated deeply with the crowd. They weren't just admiring him because of his fame or his designs, they were admiring him for the courage he had shown, for standing up for himself and others in a way that most people would shy away from. Meanwhile, a few onlookers took the opportunity to reflect on the guard's behavior. One man turned to his friend and muttered, "Can you believe that?" They had no idea who they were dealing with, just judging him because of his clothes. His friend nodded. "Yeah, it's crazy. They were so quick to assume. I'm honestly embarrassed for them." The teen overheard the conversation and gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. He wasn't interested in making the guards feel worse than they already did, but he could tell that the encounter had sparked something in the crowd, a deeper reflection on how people judge each other based on appearance. For him, this wasn't just a win in the moment. It was a win for everyone who had ever been underestimated, who had ever felt the sting of judgment because they didn't fit into society's narrow definitions of normal. As the crowd slowly began to disperse, the teen glanced one last time at the spot where the confrontation had unfolded. He could already feel the shift in the air. People would talk about this day, about the designer who stood his ground in the face of mockery, about the lesson they'd all learned. It wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a movement. As the mall returned to its usual hum of activity, the teen walked away, a small but satisfied smile on his face. He had proven a point, but more importantly, he had left a lasting impression. The mall would never be the same again, not for the people who witnessed the encounter, and certainly not for the guards who had been so quick to judge. And for the teen, this was just the beginning. The world was his runway, and he had just made his debut. The path ahead was wide open, and with every step, he knew he was making a difference not just in fashion, but in how people saw one another. Stay tuned, because the teen's journey has only just begun. You've seen him handle the spotlight now. Watch as he continues to break boundaries and challenge the status quo. Just when the story seemed to have reached its peak, a twist no one saw coming unfolded before the teen even left the mall. As he made his way toward the exit, still basking in the rush of the crowd's admiration, a familiar voice called out to him, "Hey, wait up." He turned, eyebrows raising slightly in curiosity. Standing a few feet away was a man, perhaps in his late 30s, wearing a sharp suit and a briefcase in hand. He was clearly out of place in the casual, shopping mall environment, and his presence caught the teen off guard. The man approached with a purposeful stride, a slight smile tugging at his lips. "I saw what happened back there," he said, his tone more intrigued than anything else. "Impressive." The teen gave him a cautious but polite nod. "Thanks." But it wasn't really about the attention, it's about standing up for yourself. The man nodded, clearly understanding. "I get that. But I think you might be underestimating the impact of what just happened." The teen tilted his head, now fully curious. "What do you mean?" The man hesitated for a moment before responding, his smile widening. "Well, let me put it this way, you've got more eyes on you now than you think. People don't forget moments like this." The teen was silent for a moment, letting the words sink in. He had known that this encounter would get some attention, but he hadn't fully realized just how far-reaching its effects might be. The man stepped a little closer, his eyes scanning the teen's outfit once more, before meeting his gaze. "You're not just a designer, you've got a story now. People will want to know more about you, about your journey, your vision, everything." The teen smiled slightly, realizing where this conversation was heading. "And you think you can help with that?" The man's smile turned into a grin. "Let's just say I know a few people who might be interested in what you're doing. You've got the talent, the charisma, and now the exposure. You don't get moments like this often." The teen studied the man for a moment, sensing something different about him. He wasn't just a casual passerby or another admirer. This was someone who saw more than just a viral moment. He saw potential. "I don't know," the teen began, unsure if he wanted to jump into something that might feel like too much too soon. But the man wasn't giving up. "You've got one shot at this," the man said, his voice a little more earnest now. "Trust me, the world is watching. You just have to decide whether you're ready to take the next step." The teen looked around the mall, his eyes taking in the buzz that was still lingering in the air. People were still talking, still pulling out their phones, still recording. He realized, with a sudden clarity, that the moment he'd just experienced wasn't just a one-off. It was the beginning of something bigger. He turned back to the man. "Okay," he said, his voice steady. "Let's talk." And with that, the teen unknowingly stepped into a world of opportunity, one that would push him beyond the boundaries of fashion and into the realm of influence. The encounter at the mall, which had begun as a simple misunderstanding, had now opened doors he hadn't even considered. As he walked away with the man, the crowd's whispers began to quiet, but the ripple effect of what had just occurred was far from over. The teen was about to enter a new chapter of his life, and it was one that would change everything. This wasn't just about fashion anymore. This was about making a mark on the world. Stay tuned, because the journey ahead will take this teen far beyond the confines of the mall, and the possibilities are endless. What happens next will leave you in awe. As the teen and the man walked toward the exit, the world around them seemed to blur, and the noise of the mall faded into the background. The teen felt as though he were stepping into a new reality, one that was just beginning to unfold in front of him. The man, whose name he now learned was Victor, was talking about opportunities, connections, and how the teen's brand could take off in ways he had only dreamed about. Victor's words were filled with promise. "I've got connections in the industry. People who could take your designs to the next level. What you did back there, that wasn't just about a confrontation. You made a statement, and that's exactly what the fashion world needs right now. Bold, authentic, and unapologetic." The teen nodded, trying to process the gravity of what Victor was saying. He had always dreamed of being recognized for his work, but this felt different. It wasn't just about being noticed, it was about being understood. Victor saw him, not as a kid in a mall, but as a designer with a vision. "So, what's the next step?" the teen asked, his voice tinged with excitement. Victor gave him a knowing look. "We'll set up a meeting with some key players in the industry. People who can help elevate your brand, your story. But first, I want to see more of your work. I want to see the pieces you're designing now, not just the ones you've shown before." The teen felt a surge of adrenaline. This was real. This was the chance he had been waiting for. He had always known he was destined for something bigger than just creating designs in his bedroom, but now he could feel the world opening up to him in ways he never imagined. "Let's do it," he said with a firm nod. "I've got plenty more to show you." As they walked out of the mall, the teen felt a weight lift off his shoulders. The ridicule, the mockery, the assumption that he was just another teenager with big dreams, none of it mattered anymore. He had just turned a pivotal moment into an opportunity of a lifetime. Victor, noticing the change in the teen's demeanor, smiled. "I knew you had it in you. The right people are always watching, even when you think they're not. You just need to be ready when they show up." The teen chuckled, feeling a mix of disbelief and gratitude. "I had no idea I'd get a chance like this today." "That's the beauty of it," Victor said. "You never know when your moment will come. But when it does, you've got to be ready to seize it." As they walked to the car, the teen couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The confrontation in the mall had been a turning point, a moment where everything had changed. And now, it wasn't just about the designs he wore or the clothes he created. It was about the bigger picture. His work was more than just fabric and stitching, it was about a message. A message of self-expression, of challenging norms, and of showing the world that true style comes from within. And this was just the beginning. The teen had no idea where this path would lead, but one thing was certain: he was ready for whatever came next. Stay tuned for what happens when the teen steps into the fashion world with a new sense of purpose, and watch as he transforms from a mall confrontation into a global force. The journey ahead is going to be one you won't want to miss. As the teen stepped into Victor's car, the hum of the mall faded completely into the background. The world outside the window seemed brighter, the possibilities endless. The day had started with judgment and mockery, but it was ending with hope and opportunity. Victor turned to him as they drove away. "You've got the talent, the story, and now the spotlight. The question is, are you ready to own it?" The teen smiled, a newfound confidence radiating from him. "I've been ready. Let's make it happen." And with that, the car sped off, leaving the mall and the old perceptions far behind. The teen wasn't just walking into the fashion world anymore. He was striding into it with purpose, ready to show everyone what true creativity and authenticity looked like. But this story isn't just about him. It's about all of us, about how we see others, how we judge too quickly, and how we sometimes forget the power of individuality. It's a reminder that everyone has a story worth hearing, and that the next time you see someone expressing themselves boldly, you might just be witnessing the beginning of something extraordinary. So, what's next for our designer? The runway is calling, and the world is watching. Will he redefine fashion, inspire others, change the game entirely? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure. This is just the start. If you've been inspired by this journey, let's keep the momentum going. Hit like, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible tales that prove you should never judge a book by its cover. Because who knows, the next story might just change the way you see the world. Thank you for watching, and remember, the future belongs to those bold enough to create it.